I used to think falling in love was magic, that it just happened, out of nowhere. A spark, a connection, a moment you can't explain. And for a while, I believed in that completely. Until it happened to me. There was someone I met years ago. He came into my life like a storm, unexpected, loud, and impossible to ignore. He said whatever he felt, laughed freely, took chances I'd never even consider, and I was drawn to him instantly, not just because he was charming, but because he was everything I wasn't. I was quiet, cautious, always 2 steps ahead, always a little afraid of making a mess, but around him, I felt like a different version of myself, like I had permission to be more than what I had settled into. I told myself it was love, and maybe it was, but it didn't last. When it ended, I was heartbroken, but not just from losing him. It was deeper than that. I felt like I had lost a part of me that only existed when I was with him. And that made me question everything I thought I knew about love. A few years later, I came across something written by Jung. He said something that changed how I saw that relationship, and every relationship since. He said we don't fall in love with the person. Not entirely. We fall in love with the qualities we see in them, because they reflect something we've lost or forgotten, or never fully embraced in ourselves. That hit me hard, because suddenly, it all made sense. I wasn't just in love with him. I was in love with the boldness he carried, the freedom he lived with, the fire I never gave myself permission to feel. I projected everything I wanted and feared onto him. Jung called this projection, and once you understand it, you start to see love differently. Think about it. The responsible one falls for someone spontaneous. The introvert is pulled toward the life of the party. The grounded one is fascinated by the dreamer. It's not an accident. It's the unconscious mind reaching for balance, for wholeness. And that's why it can feel so powerful, but also why it can fall apart so fast. Because eventually, the projection fades, and what's left is the real person, not the fantasy. And when that happens, we're forced to ask, was I ever really in love with them? Or just in love with the part of me they woke up? That question stayed with me, because deep down I knew I wasn't just mourning him, I was mourning a version of myself I only met because of him. But Jung didn't see this as failure. He saw it as necessary, as part of the process of becoming whole. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized, maybe love doesn't come to complete us. Maybe it comes to show us what's missing. And sometimes, that discovery feels like destiny. But is it? That's where the next layer of Jung's theory changed everything for me. Because he believed that the person we fall for doesn't just reflect a missing quality. They often match an image we've carried deep inside for most of our lives, long before we ever met them. Let me explain. It's strange, isn't it? How sometimes you meet someone, and it feels like you've known them forever. You can't explain it. There's a pull, deep and immediate. Like your heart recognizes something before your mind even catches up. That happened to me once too. Different from before. This time, it wasn't about personality or traits I admired. It felt deeper, like he fit a shape inside me I didn't even know was there. It was almost unsettling. How quickly I trusted him. How sure I felt, without a single logical reason. Later, I learned that Jung had a name for that kind of experience. He called it the anima and animus. In simple terms, he believed that every man carries an inner feminine image, the anima, and every woman carries an inner masculine image, the animus. These aren't just ideas. They're emotional blueprints, formed over years, from childhood experiences, from our parents, from stories, culture, even fairy tales. They shape how we imagine love, who we think we're supposed to fall for, what completion looks like in another human being. So when we meet someone who resembles that internal image, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, it feels electric, familiar, destined, unstoppable. But that's not fate. It's recognition. A projection of an inner figure we've been carrying quietly, sometimes our whole lives. And here's where it gets dangerous. Because the more someone fits that image, the more we stop seeing them and start relating only to the fantasy. We don't fall in love with the person as they are. We fall in love with how perfectly they fit what we always dreamed of. And that dream is built from memory, longing, even pain. That's what happened to me. He wasn't particularly kind. He didn't listen well. But for some reason, I couldn't walk away. Because he felt right. Now I realize he wasn't right for me. He was right for the inner image I carried. Jung believed that until we become conscious of that image, the anima or animus, we are bound to keep falling in love with versions of it over and over again, not because it's love, but because it's familiar. It's what the psyche is trying to work through. Think about that. So much of what we call love might be our own unconscious trying to heal something, trying to bring together the pieces we left behind. And yet, if we don't become aware of what's really happening, we keep chasing phantoms, falling for people who match a story, not a soul. I look back now and realize I wasn't seeing him clearly. I was seeing a shadow, a figure shaped by my past, my culture, my unmet needs. He fit the outline of someone I'd been looking for since I was young. And when that illusion started to fade, so did the relationship. Because when you fall for an image, reality can't compete. But there's something beautiful in that too. Because once you become aware of this pattern, once you see that you've been falling for parts of your own inner world, you stop searching for someone to complete you. You start asking, what part of me have I been projecting outward all this time? And that question, it changes everything. Because the answer isn't out there. It's within. That's what Jung meant by individuation. Becoming whole, by reclaiming every part of yourself you once looked for in others. And that brings me to something I wish I'd known much earlier in life. Not every love is meant to last. Some are meant to reveal, to awaken, to bring us back to ourselves. Looking back now, I've come to see love differently. Not as something we find in someone else, but as something that reveals us to ourselves. For a long time, I blamed myself for the relationships that didn't work. I thought I had failed, or chosen wrong, or maybe just loved too deeply. But now I understand they all had a purpose, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. Carl Jung believed that love, even in its heartbreak, is a teacher. Because when you fall for someone, you're not just connecting with them, you're connecting with the forgotten parts of yourself. The boldness you admired? That's your hidden courage. The gentleness that moved you? That's your softness waiting to return. The freedom, the strength, the wildness, the silence. It was always yours. You just didn't recognize it until someone else held up the mirror. And yes, sometimes those mirrors crack. The illusion fades. The person reveals their flaws. Or maybe we simply grow in different directions. But the lesson remains. Every love shows you what you're still searching for in yourself. I once fell for a man who felt like home. Everything about him calmed me. He didn't excite me like others had, but he made me feel safe. And for a while, I couldn't understand why that love felt more true than the others. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't dramatic. But now I know. It was because, by then, I had stopped needing him to carry my missing pieces. I had begun to carry them myself. That's the difference. When you seek wholeness in another, love can become dependence. But when you seek wholeness in yourself, love becomes freedom. You stop asking, will they complete me? And start asking, do they reflect who I've become? For those of us in the second half of life, this matters more than ever. Because we've lived. We've loved and lost. We've seen dreams break. We've seen illusions fade. And we've been given a rare gift. The chance to finally love with our eyes open. Not to be completed, not to be saved, but simply to be seen. Love through Jung's lens isn't a destination. It's a mirror, a message, a moment that says, look, this is you, This is what you're ready to feel. This is what you've hidden. And this is what you're becoming. So now, when I think about the people I've loved, I don't see failure. I see chapters. Each one showing me something new about myself. Each one pushing me to grow, to reclaim, to return home. Not to someone else, but to me. Because the truth is, we don't fall in love with them. We fall in love with what they awaken in us. And if we're lucky, we stay in love long enough to awaken ourselves. If this story made you pause, if it helped you see love a little differently, I'd be so grateful if you'd share it with someone who might need to hear it too. And if you're still carrying pieces of old love, or wondering what they meant, you're not alone. Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what love has taught you. Because the answer isn't out there. It's within.